Hey there, avid listeners. Thanks again for tuning into Sin's Workshop. Hope you're having a great day. Today we're going to be talking about The Mirror, Broken Wish by Julie C. Dow. It's the first in a new series. And I have to say, I was ultimately incredibly pleased with this novel. What Julie C. Dow does very well, I think, are retellings. This isn't the first retelling from hers that I have had the chance to read, and ultimately, I really did enjoy her storytelling here because she's just so good at fairy tales. I mean, this story takes place in a small village in I think in Germany, and even the Grimm Brothers make an appearance in the storytelling. And I love how the story references fairy tales within itself. And I love how itself is a fairy tale. It is very reminiscent of the Grimm fairy tales structure-wise. It starts with the origin of the curse that haunts this family. It starts with, a mother and a woman and a man. The woman befriends the town witch, although she doesn't believe the rumors, and the town witch, thankful for her kindness and her friendship, gives her a potion that will allow her to finally have kids, which is what her and her husband have been trying to do for, years. Her only stipulation is that she come have dinner with her once a month and continue the friendship. Of course, the husband, who is so focused on social standing and rising in the village, doesn't want this at all, so he makes her break the promise. And of course, the witch warned her, if you break a promise, it will come back. That is a very typical, that's very typical for Wiccan mentality. Let it harm none and let it be done. If you use magic to harm someone, it's going to come back at you threefold. And I love that Dow incorporates that in her storytelling. I think it's really richly told. I think the story is a very rich narrative. I find it incredibly compelling. I find it incredibly well done. I really did think that this was a good story. I mean, I read this as an arc, but I really want to buy it to have it on my shelf so that I can share it with my son when he gets older. I mean, that's how much I really like this story. And that only rarely happens. Money is tight, especially after being on furlough for about 4 months. But I'm willing to do that for this novel because I really did like it. I love the storytelling. I love the fairy tales. I love fairy tales in general. And this is a story that I really do want to share with my son and future children as he gets older. I think it will make for a great share. I mean, this is a story you can pick up and you want to sit around and just read it out loud because it just flows so well. And it's written perfectly. The tone, the setting, the atmosphere, they are all so well constructed here. And I think Dow just did a really good job with her overall storytelling, because she starts the story in the past, sort of like Into the Woods. And see, that's my point. I read the story and I just kept thinking of fairy tales. She mentions, a lot of fairy tales, a lot of Hans Christian fairy tales, a lot of Grimm fairy tales. They do play a part in this story. So Dow is able to incorporate some realism into her storytelling. And I think that's really key. And that's what really makes it compelling. That she incorporates some realism. It's like she's giving these fairy tales that readers are so familiar with an origin. She's giving them a point of origin. Be like, well, the red slippers, this is where they came from. The mirror, magic mirror, this is where it came from. The glass coffin, this is where it came from. She incorporates so much into her storytelling, and yet it's still so addicting, it's still so fresh, it's still so compelling to read because it is so well written. Dao just did an incredible job with her storytelling. She did an incredible job structuring the story, building up the momentum, and building up these characters, and that's really key when it comes to a fairy tale. You really want to be drawn in, you want to lose yourself in it, and I think Dao did a really good job with that because I lost myself in this story. I just didn't want to put it down. I wanted to keep reading it, and in fact, there were times where I did start reading it out loud to my son. And gosh, it really was a good story. I can't say that enough. It was so magical. It was magical. If you follow Sin's Workshop, you know I'm a huge fan of fairy tales. I do love them a lot. I don't know why, but I really do love the fantasy of them. I do love the magic. I do love these happily ever afters. And this story, it doesn't really have a happily ever after. That's what I'm saying. It's like a Grimm fairy tale. If you read Grimm fairy tales, you know that a lot of these stories, they don't have happy endings. You know, they're kind of, a little scary sometimes. And I think that's another reason why this was such a good novel, because Dao didn't really play into that whole kind of Disney fantasy. Yes, this is a Disney Hyperion publication, but she didn't really play into the whole Disney happily ever after kind of story that readers are sort of familiar with. You see Disney, you're like, oh, it's going to be a happily ever after. It's really not. It's very bittersweet, and that's something else I appreciated about it. That Dao really stayed true to herself, that she created this realism, this surrealism, this magical realism to the story. And I feel like this is really just a good story to share with readers. I really do think it's compelling. I do think that the narrative is well done. I think that the structure was well done. And I really just can't say this enough. I highly recommend it because it really is a good story. So this was The Mirror, Broken Wish by Julie C. Dao. It is the first in a series. Highly recommend it. I give it 5 stars. And if I'm giving it 5 stars, you know how picky I am with my 5 stars. If you're a returning listener, you know that 5 stars are very rare for me because a book simply has to blow me away. And Broken Wish really did blow me away. I really did find it to be such a compelling story. So once again, this was The Mirror, Broken Wish by Julie C. Dao, 5 stars. Go ahead and purchase this book off of bookshop.org. Money's too tight. Please check out the book from your local library. Libraries are a great resource for the community, and they definitely deserve our support. And if you don't mind, I hope you will continue to support me by following and subscribing to this podcast. I hope you all have a great rest of your day, and as always, happy reading.